Hello, hello, hello. It is super duper late today. Normally I would be here by now, but things happen, and by things I mean I am an extreme gay, and when another gay calls you and ask you to cut their hair for them, you say yes. So I was helping a friend cut their hair, and it took way longer than I thought it would because I have electric clippers that hate me and all of my life. Thought it would only take a couple of hours. It ended up taking more like 3 or 4. So that's where I was all night. But we're gonna actually do some stream stuff now. It is late at night, but we're still here. So I'm going to do some painting stuff. I had something planned today, but since stream is taking a while to get started, we're not going to be here super late. I need to actually get some sleep at some point tonight as well. But I am going to stream for a couple of hours and do some work on the Castlevania fan art painting that I was working on the last time I streamed. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. It's going to be a pretty chill, kind of lazy stream, and I'm probably going to be taking some breaks to make some coffee to continue working because it's gonna go into the night. It's already 9 p.m. where I live right now, so hopefully it is not super late wherever you are. You hid paper. What did you hid paper? You hid the paper? You hid paper? Oh, hey, by the way, make sure that you are your mail is that you are getting your mail and that your mailbox is not like super full. Hid paper into the night. But yeah, make sure that your physical outside your door mailbox is doing good. Because yes, I am going to be doing some drawing. But yeah, make sure that your mailbox is good because you are getting some things in the mail for me. They may or may not be rocks, but I think that's pretty appropriate, considering what you got your mother. I think that getting you rocks is pretty appropriate. So but yeah, you may or may not be getting some mail from me in the next coming days. But anyway, we're gonna be drawing today. Gonna be doing some Castlevania stuff. Let me move to my face cam. Sorry, it's super late. I was so busy today. Anyway, face cam. I'm here. I exist. Only marginally, only slightly, only in the vaguest of senses do I exist, but I do somewhat exist in some ways, occasionally. Glancingly off the side of the universe, I exist. So yeah, we're gonna be here, we're gonna be painting, we're gonna be working on the painting that I was working on Fan Art Friday, finishing that up, or at least getting as much of it finished as I can, because I don't have a lot of time to do fan art, and what I had planned for the stream is more like several hours. And yes, I'm wearing the beanie. The beanie has many a good pins on it. There is a Van Gogh pin. There are also quite a few D&D pins on this beanie, but yeah, so we're gonna be doing some Castlevania fan art. My stream setup is so crooked right now because I haven't messed with it today. And then if things go well with the Castlevania fan art, I might do some stuff for Handbasket, or might move into some commission stuff, but I just want to get further on fan art, knowing that the next season of the show is going to come on. Did I submit to what? Did I submit to what? What did I submit to? Are you talking about my interview submissions? No, because I need to reformat my portfolio for those. So I still have stuff to do for those. But I have a while to do that. So yeah. We're going to do Castlevania stuff. Let me pull up all of my references and things that I need for this image while we're here. I also have not eaten dinner, so if I take a break and go get an email, I will do that. Do thing? Yeah, I plan on submitting the thing. I'm not gonna not do that. it takes time to, because I like what they tell you. Okay, I will explain the interview and how things like this go. Hoshi on floor next to me, but she's sleepy, she tired, she knows it's tired time. She was very excited because I came home and I smelled like another dog, and she was like, oh, the dog, the one dog that I like in the world, the one other dog that matters to me. So she was excited for that. But anyway, the way the interview works is they go in, they look at your portfolio, you ask them, okay, I want to work for your company, how do I do that? To me, they said, your work is already ready to work at our company. However, we need a portfolio submitted that shows these talents, and they list what they need from you. So for me, they listed, we need a portfolio that shows that you can format comics, which I have a couple comics, but none of them are modern. None of them are, good enough to submit to that portfolio. And they also said we need a submission that has less character design and more layout design and color work of other people's work. So basically show that you can color someone else's pencils. So they wanted me to collaborate with another artist, so I've contacted another artist and gotten their rough inks to color over in the past couple of days, and I just need to format and put together the next portfolio, and I should be good, and that should be all set. But that takes time, so I have some time to do that. I will do it. All of that takes time, and I just want to do fan art tonight. Tonight is a long night, and I just want to do fan art. But yes, adult coloring book, exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. For anyone who is in the chat or is seeing this and doesn't know what I'm talking about, I had some comic interviews that happened, and I like to call being a colorist for comics an adult coloring book, because what essentially it is another artist has done the penciling and inking for you, and you are just doing the coloring. And I would most likely be hired to do coloring for the comics that I would be on, and if I get hired to do them, it's just adult coloring books. It's just someone handing me the thing and being like, color in the lines. Not that it's not like talented or that people who do it don't deserve whatever. It's just not my dream. I make comics, I write my own stories, so I plan on doing that long term, but a good short term thing is to do the adult coloring book version. Also, I'm going to alter the camera slightly so you can see a little bit better. That should be better, and so that you're not looking at Griffith's ass, because there's a portrait of Griffith right above me. I don't know if you can see it, if I can tilt far enough for you for the camera to see. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. Portrait of Griffith that is directly above my stream setup. Now we're gonna put it back. So if I don't have the camera tilted down far enough, you can just see Griffith's ass in the shot. I don't like that, so we're gonna make that not happen. But so yeah, in the past couple of weeks I've gotten many commissions and job interviews left and right, and that means that I'm going to have less and less time to do fan art. So in the time that I have, I would like to do the fan art that I set out to do starting this. Without further ado, where are we? Hoshi. Hello, it is not playtime. Can I have that? You are making a lot of noise. Can I have... Thank you. She brought me a toy, the loudest one she has, to mess up the stream, specifically, because she hates me. She's rude. She's rude and she hates me. Isn't that right? She's rude and she hates me. I'm petting her right now by telling her evil things. Alright. Thanks. Thanks for making noise. Thanks. That's very polite of you. Uh-oh. What? What? Okay, we're gonna get into painting, because if I don't do that, I'm gonna be here playing with the dog all night. So let me pull up my stream, my painting. There we go. So if you weren't here on Friday, what we did was I started in on this Alucard painting that I had wanted to do for a while. Hoshi is in the background still making noise. and I did some line art of it. I kind of got it squared away to do that and put that together. Hoshi, I must take this toy from you. I am very sorry. I must take it. I'm sorry. God, you're evil. So yeah, I was doing this painting of Alucard on Friday, and I wish to finish it, or at least get the line art done today. So I'm gonna just be doing that and kind of chatting along the way. It's gonna be a pretty chill stream, and I may not be here very long, but we're gonna do our best with the late night, the late of the hour, and do everything we can. So when I did this on Friday, I have this castle in the background, obviously the Castlevania Castle TM, and then I also have all of the, you know, stuff in the foreground of Alucard and his outfit and his sword and all of that. Laid all this in on Friday, and now I'm going in and trying to finalize some of the line stuff, make sure that it is, you know, laying the way that I want it to, make sure that it's like handling everything that I want correctly, trying to make sure that basically the foreground figure is very easy to select out of the background, and that will make more sense if you've seen some of my other streaming stuff. If you haven't, it'll make more sense here soon, but I'm just kind of going in and making sure that I lay in these lines, and anyone who's familiar with, oh, that's not what I want to do, that's not the layer I want to be on, but anyone who's familiar with comic books, this would be the line art stage, except I don't do a line art stage. When I do comics or illustrations, I go directly, this would be what most people would call pencils. I go directly from pencil stage to finished artwork most frequently. I tend to not do line art stages just because they take more time than they're worth for me, I've noticed. And I think that was my biggest issue with the Hector piece that I was doing, the other Castlevania piece, that I got halfway through and realized I wasn't enjoying as much. Thanks for another very loud noise directly into the mic, Hoshi. Wonderful, perfect, great, beautiful, a star. It's everything that we need in life. But yeah, the Hector painting that I started with very much so had that issue. Other than just the general layout issues that I was having with the painting, I realized that a big issue was I was trying to force line art on a painting that I wouldn't normally do line art on. And I realized that my style personally is to not do line art because I don't like how line art looks most often. And when I do, it's this kind of line art where it's very painterly and sketchy in pencils. So I'm just doing my finished pencils here and kind of laying out where some of the details would be, some of the like shadows of the hair and things like that, to make sure that when I get to the finalization of this piece, I have everything in place. It's better to plan it out now than to be surprised by it later. And some people can do some really beautiful surprise paintings, and I can when I try, but when I'm working with something like this that matters a lot to me, I tend to not. I tend to actually over finesse my paintings, and that's something that I'm like trying to get away from. And that was something that I disliked about the line art of the other piece, was that I kind of like hyper focus and then over render places in some of my paintings, and I have that issue with some of my most recent works as well. And I'm trying to verge away from over rendering by doing this very like sketchy way of doing line art, because in the end this isn't going to be all that visible. You're still going to get some of these like dark bits like near the face over here and under the chin and stuff, but a lot of these lines are so faint that they're going to disappear into the painting later. So it's kind of a combination of adding tone and line. And I did this recently for a commission, and it came out so pretty that I thought I would try it on like a larger scale and see if this is stylistically something that I enjoy doing. It does take a lot of time, so it is a style that I have to devote a lot of thought to. I can't just like decide one day like, oh, I want my art to look like that. It is something that I have to like think critically about where I'm going to lay all of these little pencil marks, the same way that you would have to if you were just drawing traditionally in graphite. It's kind of like doing a graphite drawing underneath the final piece. All right. At least it doesn't take a lot of brain power to do, though. Sometimes when I'm doing big pieces like this, I worry that the stream is not going to be fun because I'm literally just doing stuff that takes all of my brain power. But once I get past the general drawing stage, I find it loosens up a little bit and becomes a little bit more fun and a little more loose. Like I can talk while I'm drawing and things like that. Doesn't usually hamper me all that much when I'm in this stage. What does hamper me is when I'm doing sketch and thumbnail phases where my brain is actually needing to work. Then I can't talk while I'm working, and that's where I have rather boring streams, I've found. So it's unfortunate, but I do not wish to stop streaming the rather boring parts, because some people like to see that, and also because the entire reason that I started streaming in the first place is because a very and I've told this story a couple times ago on the stream, but a very terrible person accused me of not actually drawing my art, and I decided to start streaming out of pure spite. And I know that sounds petty, and what I have to say to that is I'm petty, and I hope that this person one day finds my stream. I'm not sorry about it, and I will openly admit that I started streaming out of pure spite. Don't ever say that to anybody. It's rude as hell. You don't know what they've done to get where they are in art. Number one, it's rude as hell. Number two, unless you have empirical evidence, don't. Like the situation with Butch Hartman, there's evidence of that. Most situations that you find on the internet, unless you have like actual evidence of this happening, most of the time that's not what's going on. You're just uneducated about art, and I don't usually like to be that mean about like the art world and be elitist and be like, you haven't been in the art world so you don't know, because like that's a load of bull. But this is one of the things where it's like you haven't been in the art world so you don't know, because most of what people get accused of tracing for is using reference effectively, because people think that you just magic up images out of your brain machine, and you never have to work on your own visual library or like look at anything to draw, and that's just stupid. And also people think that like the more photorealistic your stuff looks, the more likely it is that you've traced. Like there's just a lot of really bad vibes out there about people thinking that people trace art. So like, don't be one of those people. And if you are one of those people, this is a shout out to you. I started streaming because of you. Thanks. But yeah, that's why I keep in all of the like really rambly moments where I'm working and like not really saying a lot, because I'm just kind of like staring deadly at the screen, and I keep all that stuff in. I don't edit anything out. I don't like pause and go, I'm gonna go sketch this and I'll be right back or anything, because like I want people to see what it's like to complete a piece like this, something that takes this much detail and time, because like if you were here in the last stream, you'll see that one of my sketches, one of the immediate, you know, things that I did in my sketch. This sword here is a brush. That's not a sword that I drew by hand, but I am going to draw over it by hand because I want it to have some subtle changes. But it's not a sword that like I personally drew by hand. And I have brushes. I can go look at them right now. I have brushes in here that are literally just objects. Feathers. Like strawberries. Bones. I have snakeskin. Hands. I have brushes, entire brushes dedicated to hands. Because I don't want to draw hands every day. So if I find out like, oh, I really like one of these hands that I already have, I'll just slap it down and draw over it. And like, I know professional artists that have even more than I do, and especially as professional comic artists. A lot of professional comic artists do like have brush packs like that. They don't use them often. I don't use them often either. I only use them when I think to, which is rare. But you know, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a pack full of hands in your brush pack and deciding like, hey, I would like to reference these hands each time that I need a hand that looks like that. But yeah, I don't know. The art world is wild, and there's been an influx lately of people who, and I mean this in the most well-meaning way, I love you all and you're making the art world a better place, but it's being filled with people who are hobby artists, and I try not to be an elitist when it comes to art. I'm not a person that's like, if you're a hobby artist, you're not a real artist. Actually, I think hobby artists a lot of the time work harder and better than professional artists because they have to in order to survive. But because there's been, since the influx of the thing that's happening outside the doors right now, the panic mode settings on the world base happening, there's been an influx of hobby artists in the art community, and because they don't have there's like very little that you need classical art training for, but because a lot of hobby artists don't have classical art training, they aren't as knowledgeable about what using reference is like, what it means, and like, that's not every hobby artist and that's not every person that works this way, but there's a lot more younger artists in the art world now who don't know what reference is, but they do know that a major artist got busted for tracing, and they go, oh no, this is an epidemic on the art world, which is why we all hate Butch Hartman, by the way, because he gives artists a bad name. But people think that it's an epidemic on the art world and that they're going to get tricked if they're getting a commission from someone. They're like, oh no, don't trick me, and it's kind of silly, and it just shows the lack of knowledge, because while there are people out there who do trick people like that, they're few and far between, because just coming from someone who like makes money at art, it is hard to maintain this lifestyle even if you can draw. I can't imagine how hard it would be to maintain this lifestyle if you couldn't, because not being able to draw means that every day you would, I assume you would have to go looking for like something to trace or some reference to have or something every day, and you'd be like, I need to figure out, like, I go look for reference every day for poses and stuff, but I can't imagine like every time you want to draw something going, oh no, I have to go look this up, I have to go find someone else who's drawn it in a style that I can cohesively like pass off as my own, and then use that and claim it as mine and hope that nobody notices. Like, I don't, that's just not sustainable. You'll end up so tired. Also, you'll be in internet battles 24/7, so you'll never have time to research anything either. The whole model of like tracing art and like making bank doesn't make any sense, right? And the only reason people are worried about it is because of Butch Hartman, because they think that this is something that the art world at large does. But it's not at all. It's extremely rare, and also a lot of the people that get accused of tracing have just a different way of going about their art. Like, a lot of people heavily use photo reference, and some people don't. Doesn't make them less of an artist to use reference. And it also doesn't make somebody less of an artist to draw like somebody else, or to use the same pose as someone else. I've seen people accuse people of pose stealing before, and I'm just like, you can't copyright a pose? Like, yeah, if it's directly traced from the body of the piece that you've made, like, that's one thing. But like, people have said that their OCs have specific poses and you can't steal them. No, like, you don't own a pose, buddy. People can take the same reference image that you've taken and make the same exact pose. So I don't know. But yeah, this has been like a big thing for me recently, especially with the person that I talked about in the last stream and how they treated me. So now I'm just like, my entire reason for streaming has just been because someone accused me of tracing my art, and I was like, all right, bet, watch me. Let's go. Like, you want to make that accusation? I've done this before. You think this isn't the first time I've had this happen to me? I've had people telling me this since I was in grade school. I've had people telling me this since I started drawing, essentially. Like, I've had people skeptical of my ability to draw, and I wasn't good. I'm not even saying that I was some, like, amazing prodigy that, like, did better at art than everyone around me or anything like that. In fact, I was probably worse than a lot of my peers. I'm friends with some of them now, and a lot of them are better than me. Sorry, I'm looking at what that update was. I have no idea what that was. Oh, thank you for the follow. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I have to like scroll to see what my updates are on the thing, so sometimes it's easier to just flip back to the screen on my actual laptop here. But yeah, I'm not even like, I don't even think that I'm better than the peers in the art world that I had at the time, which were like tiny baby artists that were like tiny little grade school artists that could barely draw a Naruto, you know. I don't think I'm better than them. I didn't think I was better than them, and yet I would still get people at school all the time who would say things like, you didn't really draw that, and stuff like that. Even my best friends, and I mean, to this day, I look at their art and I'm like, they're so much better than me. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to say, you know. So this is like a universal thing that happens, and it's so weird to me that it keeps happening, but I'm prepared for it at this point. I expect it. Like, I when that answer comes out of somebody, like it did from that person, I wasn't even disappointed. I was just sort of like, cool, bet, we'll just stream then. I know what the solution is. You don't want to believe me? Cool, I'll just do it live in front of you. Like, and I'm glad that I've gotten to that level of confidence now, because like, teen me wouldn't have been able to do that, but I'm glad that adult me is just not gonna take that shit, and it's just like, I'm just gonna start a Twitch channel. But yeah, that's like the fun catty history behind why I started streaming on Twitch, why I came back to like doing art streams and paints and stuff, because I used to do speed paints and everything on YouTube years ago when speed paints were real big. Like, must have been 2014, 2016, and maybe 2018. It was around the time that I went to uni, which would have been, started uni in 2012, so junior year of uni would have been, yeah, 2014. And speed paints at that time got like special sight on the YouTube algorithm at one point, and I don't remember why. I think it was something to do with the watch time, because that was right around the time that they implemented the watch time, where they were like, oh, if someone watches for more than a couple of minutes, you get a boost in the algorithm. And so everyone was making their videos longer, and speed paints were the perfect timing for that, because they were like, for the most part, the ones that I edited at least were 10 minutes tops usually, and usually had a pretty cohesive theme and fun music and stuff, and I didn't have to do a lot of like really heavy labor for them. It was just sort of like, well, I was doing this anyway, I might as well put it online. And then because it was junior year of university, or sophomore year at least, and because I have absolutely terrible self-esteem, or had at the time, I deleted all of them off of my YouTube channel, which is now mostly blank. So I used to do them a lot, but what brought me back to doing it, I vowed that I would never do it again, because I kind of thought it was fruitless, and I was sort of like, there are better ways to spend my time, especially with things like doing painting and stuff. I had a lot of homework, and I realized that editing and doing speed paints every night was not conducive to getting homework done. And art homework is no joke, especially art school homework is no joke. So I just kind of stopped and decided that I would start doing less speed paint stuff and more actual stuff that helps you graduate stuff. But what brought me back was this person just being absolutely rude for no reason in a commission interaction, and me just being like, cool, great, awesome. And the other thing that's funny is, yeah, I'm super catty, and I do things almost exclusively out of spite. Like, I also have a fun story about my university professor telling me that people don't have green eyes, and therefore I made every character in all of the stories that I wrote in his class have vibrant emerald green eyes, because I have green eyes. But you know, I do things out of spite often, very often. That's kind of my default state. But while I do that, I'm not usually a person that is the type to rub someone's nose in it, even if I do end up being correct, or like even if me doing something out of spite like turns out to be this you know, right thing to do or anything like that. I tend to be one that, like, I quietly revel in my own little victory. So like, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but like, I don't really care if the stream gets popular, because that wasn't the goal. The goal was to just show people how I draw, and to have fun drawing again, and to say like, hey, you know, this person thinks this bad thing of me, how can I turn that into a positive about my life? How can I take this anger that I was feeling in that moment and decide, like, I'm gonna go online, I'm gonna do a good thing, I'm gonna, you know, make this productive. And that was the whole point. And I don't know, it's just, it's been an odd experience, like having that sort of healthy train of thought instead of the train of thought of like, I should send this to this person to show them up or to teach them a lesson, because like, they can think whatever they want. In the end, they're going to anyway. And as soon as I realized that, it was like a moment clicked in my head, and I was like, I know what I have to do. They can think whatever they want. I know what I have to do. I have to just start streaming for me. So that way, if this ever happens again, I've got logs upon logs of me drawing that I can just point to and be like, you've been wrong this entire time, you know? And to be super honest, like, doing this has made me more productive as an artist than I have been in years. So like, small minute advice, I know not everyone can afford or has the time or space to set up a stream. I know that streaming is difficult. As someone who streams, it's not the funnest, most great time in the world. Sometimes I'm super late, like today. Sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes equipment doesn't want to work with you for any number of reasons. But if you do art, consider going in and trying to do something live with your art. It doesn't have to be like a full-on stream like what I do, but just like one thing where you publicly do some sort of public interaction with your art. Because like, if you're just painting by yourself in a room, and this was a hard lesson for me to hear, because that's my dream goal. My dream goal is to be a captive Renaissance painter that some king hires and like keeps me in a castle and locked away and like feeds me in crumbs. Like that's if I could just have that, that would be my life. I would be happy at any moment. Someone just pay me to live in your house and paint elaborate murals, and do nothing else with my life, and pay for my supplies and let me live there and feed me occasionally, and I'll be happy. But other than that, like, if you want to actually do art in the modern era, you kind of have to do something public. And I'll admit, I'm not the best at this. I have severe autism, so like, I don't know how to public art, and I was scared for years over how I would do it. How do I public art when I am bad at the public? But the only advice I have is just to do it. I wish I had told younger me that. I wish I had, if I could go back, that's what I would say. If younger me turned to me and said, well, but I'm not socially good, like I'm not good at being social, I'm not good at making friends, it's like, well, just do it. Like, even if nothing comes of it, you have the evidence that you did it. You did something, and that matters. So I'm just like, every time I think about the interaction I had with that person in that commission interaction, that's all I can kind of think of. I just really want that interaction to be a positive moment in my life, and I think I'm slowly getting there. But it took me realizing that I wasn't really in love with what I was making for many years, and once I realized that, I knew I had to change something. So here we are. That's welcome to the history of how this stream started. It started with me being insanely spiteful, and then out of that spite birthed a fabulous, amazing thing. Also, it's very funny that this is happening over some very high-pitched chiptune music. Loving that. But yeah, moving on to this sword now, and I'm realizing that I kind of want to change the hilt a little bit. I don't think I have a good reference of the handle of the sword, and to be flatly honest, I don't think the animators at Netflix had a good reference for the handle of this sword either, looking at it, because it's a long sword, which means it should be the handle should be longer than it is. And also it means that in the top reference image I have of Alucard here, this very top one, it also means that he should not be holding it like that, unfortunately. I think this frame is not him wielding the sword, I think it's him catching it, so that's fine. But I am going to change this sword a little bit because they're incorrect. Long swords have a much longer handle and usually is split into a couple of sections so that you can have both handholds, because long swords are dual-handed. And I understand that Alucard is a half vampire and can most likely wield a sword by himself as a longsword and wield it with one arm. But realistically, no one would make a sword like that unless they knew that it was for him. So, and I don't think that you know, vampires in the world of Castlevania are walking around going, please make me a longsword with none of the handholds of a longsword, and make the grip of the sword extremely short. I only need to use one hand for it. I don't think that's happening, so I don't know. This is just a me choice, but we're making this an actual longsword hilt. Yawn number 1 of like 3,000. That's gonna happen tonight. Oh, I'm definitely gonna have to take my hour mark break that I usually take and go make coffee. But I'm gonna finish this sword first. Also, if you're new here and you have not been around for the hour breaks where I make coffee, I'm not gone for an hour. I just, at the hour mark of the stream, take a 15-minute break and usually go make coffee. And I also usually remind people to go hydrate, and you get to see the cool, cute little mugs that I bring back, because I never plan which mug I'm going to have each day. They just fall into my lap and decide that that day is their day. So, yawn number 2. I've realized that as I get older, I've begun yawning like a dad, and I think I'm getting terminal dad disease. I've already built a countertop once, and I have a whole tool bag of tools. I own a staple gun. It's just, dad disease is getting worse and worse progressively by the year. Soon I'm gonna be into grilling and woodworking. The fun thing too is I own the staple gun for furniture building, which is an even more dad hobby. I have the staple gun because I have a couch that I want to reupholster, and I haven't done it because it hasn't been good enough weather to do it, because you have to do it, it's an antique couch. And if you're going to reupholster a couch like the one that I have, you have to wait until the appropriate weather. You can damage the wood, which is also a dad fact that I know. And the more I explain this, the more I'm realizing that aging has done things to me. Aging has made me into a father, and I don't have children. I will never have children, so I think I've proven a theory, as someone who will never have children and who does not want them, that dad is not a thing that you become once you have kids. Dad is a state of mind that you gain over time. It's like an infection. That's what dad is. That's the dad brain, because it can't be something that happens once you have children, or else I wouldn't have the dad brain. So, but yeah, I think it started for me with cosplay, because once you build an entire thing for a cosplay, you sort of realize that, like, you could build other things, and then nothing is really off limits when you start building just random stuff for your cosplay, and you realize, like, oh, if I just tweak this a little bit, like, I think I built, gosh, so tired, I'm dad yawn. But I think I built a box at one point for a cosplay, and then I realized, well, if I want a box, like if I can build that, then I could technically build like a caddy for paintbrushes, and if I build that, then I could technically build a shelf, like a little desk shelf for things, and then it becomes a snowball effect. You just suddenly know how to do handy tool things in the house, and it doesn't even, you don't remember learning them, you just know. And then you start knowing things about cars randomly, and I know a lot of my queer friends are always like, I know nothing about cars. I, strangely, am the one queer that knows too much about cars. I know too many things about cars. My family had a very close family friend that ran an auto shop for a long time, and was very nice and sweet to me and my family, and so I know too many things about cars. One of my brother's fathers also worked in auto, so like I just learned, I learned cars through osmosis. I didn't own a car until I was well into adulthood. But I just learned things about cars through osmosis from gaining the dad infection. Now I'm trying to get this crystal correct here. Trying my best to get this sword accurate. There's a lot of detail here. Yeah, that looks accurate. It's a little short for a longsword, but I don't want to extend this this piece any further. I want to widen the canvas, so it's gonna stay like that. We're just gonna pretend that it's tilted back, because I'm way too lazy to fix what's going on. I mean, not that anyone will know. They'll know now because I pointed it out, but if I had never pointed it out, no one would know. Except for people who are fanatics about swords, which, I mean, to be honest, are not people you want to anger, but also, now they know that I was right. I know what the right answer is, I just am choosing out of laziness not to do it. If that doesn't explain literally me in every instance, every existence I've ever been in has been, I know what the right answer is, but I am opting not to. Oh man, I was talking to a friend earlier today, the person that I had to cut the hair for, which is why I'm super late to the stream. Which, by the way, if you missed like the beginning intro part, I am a horrible, horrible queer, and therefore when a friend asks me to cut their hair for them, I cannot refuse. So that's where I was when I should have been streaming. Sorry about that. But while I was talking to this friend while I was cutting their hair, we got on to the topic of like schooling because neurodivergent people, and I remember having this conversation about how but I remember having this conversation about how basically people say that there's two ways that neurodivergent people, and this was like a post that I brought up too, but people say that there's two ways that neurodivergent people end up when they go through school. They either end up being super obedient in order to not incur the wrath of, you know, their caregivers, and become people pleasers, or they get traumatized and kind of rebel, right? And for me, I was sort of neither, but also sort of both. I became the physical embodiment, and I still am to this day, and you'll see this in the petty things that I just talked about, actually. But I became the most actually child that ever existed. I legitimately would read thousands of pages of rulebook just to catch the people trying to enforce the rulebook not following the rules. So if they ever came up to me and they said, you have to do this thing because it's against the rules to not, or whatever, I would point out something about them that was currently against the rules. Because I had autism, I didn't understand that authority trumps the rule book. That was something that was never taught to me. I was taught that the rules were paramount, and therefore, if I found a rule that they weren't following, that means I win. And so I would actively do that. I would read rule books for fun, because I thought it was fun to find rules that people weren't following and then bring up that they weren't following them. You can imagine I didn't have very many friends. But that was my pastime, was to read rule books and pointedly break rules so that I would be confronted on them, and then I would be able to laud over my professors or whoever it was. I would be able to laud over them that they also were not following the rules and therefore could not enforce rules on me. And that was just how I spent most of my school time. Any time that I was in school was spent doing essentially just that. Finding ways to break the rules. And you would think that this would make me fall into the category of the second category of like, oh, you're a neurodivergent that rebelled and, you know, didn't get good grades and everything because whatever. No. I also got incredibly good grades. Frequently. I could not drop below a B in any of my classes, and believe me, I tried. I did try. I tried to be bad at school for years, because there was this whole thing in the late 90s where it was like cool to be stupid, and nowadays we're going back to that because himbos are a thing, although I think himbos are 100% more wholesome, but there was this whole trend of like, it was cool to be an idiot, and it wasn't so much that I wanted to be an idiot, it was more I wanted very badly to be simple, and I didn't. It's hard to explain what that means, but I was frustrated by my neurodivergence not being assimilated into society and making the world hard for me. So I wished that I could be simple like everyone else. I wished that the answer was simple a lot, that like things would happen and I would get upset over them, and I'd be like, I wish I was, you know, less intelligent, because I wouldn't think about this as much, and then it'd be easier to get my mind off of it if I didn't have as many thoughts, and just like that sort of thing. So I wished for that level of like blissful ignorance, essentially, a lot. And so I had this whole like arc of like wanting very badly to not be the smart kid in class. It did not work though. Did not work. It never works. It's not a good tactic. It's a bad time. Don't recommend it. It's very not fun. But I did try. I tried my best to be the very, very smart kid, and to still like be able to have that like step away from the smart kid and like, you know, be rebellious. And I was rebellious. I was not rebellious in the way that like I got terrible grades and didn't care. I got great grades, and then teachers and professors would treat me like they would treat me like I was too good of a kid to be doing the rebellious, terrible things that I did. A lot. And I didn't understand it at the time. I kind of get it now, because looking at my grade point average and then looking at the random shenanigans I got up to does not add up. Shenanigans including our senior prank, where our entire idea, and something that I may or may not, for legal reasons, cannot admit that I was part of, was to steal a lot of the instruments out of our band room, because I spent most of my time in the band room. I was band kid. Steal a lot of the instruments out of the band room and put them in places they shouldn't belong, such as putting the tubas up on top of the director's stand, which was a sharp metal scaffolding in the middle of the field. And we put tubas up on top of it and then saran wrapped the entire scaffolding so that you couldn't climb it. We also put the conductor's baton up there and all of the flag equipment up there, and then we filled the entire band room, like practice room, with cups of water and all the and so that when you open the doors they would be knocked open. And then we filled the band room office with balloons. And each balloon had the name of a student. And inside each balloon was a place where the student's instrument could be found, somewhere in the school. So yeah, I was a level of evil that was not reflective in my grades. I also was the child, and like everyone knew this kid, everyone hated this kid. I was this kid. So if you hated this kid, congratulations, it's me. Feel free to hate on me now. I can take it now. I'm an adult. I would have cried about it as a kid, but I'm an adult now. But I was the child that we had reading assignments, right? And I was the child that came in the first day and had read all of the reading assignments for the upcoming quarter. And would challenge the teacher right then and there that if I could pass a quiz more than 70% accuracy, I think I upped it to 80% in my senior year, but I was like, if I can pass a quiz up to 80% accuracy on this book, I don't want to have to participate in any of the homework related to it. And I only had 2 professors stupid enough to take that offer. And both times I passed and did not have to do any of the homework related to any of the books. They tried to make me do classwork related to the books, and I refused that too. And refusing it did nothing to my grade because it was weighted against classwork. Because if it wasn't weighted against classwork, that would be going against people with disabilities. So I got away with it. And I also bullied my counselor to willingly, and they would not do this for anybody else, but I bullied my counselor and had my mother bully my counselor into allowing me to have pretty much just like whole hours of my day labeled as study hall, which study hall was they put you in a room to study. It's deathly quiet and you're not allowed to do anything without permission. Essentially, it's neurodivergent torture. But I bullied my counselor to label things as study hall and then let me go into the art room. And the way I bullied them to let me do this was by saying it's just as quiet, and I promise that I will be more productive in there than I will be anywhere else. And it worked, and I went into the art room and bothered my art teachers for entire days. There were days where I had no other classes. I had band and I had art. It was amazing. That was my senior year, but it was very good. So yeah, that was the level of like neurodivergent shenanigans that I was famous for. I had a lot of stuff that I did that like I only got away with because one, they couldn't touch me. My mother won 2 lawsuits against the school that I went to, so you know, screw that. But they couldn't touch me, and 2, I just was very, very good at finding out the loophole in the rule and using it to my advantage, and repeatedly using it to my advantage and abusing it until they made a rule that said that no one else could do what I did. And I am the result, like me, I am the reason why at least 5 rules were written into the school handbook at my school, including not being able to leave campus for lunch. That was not totally my responsibility. There were other people involved in making that ratified into a rule, but I do know that I got reprimanded many a time for leaving school campus because the school would not feed me things that I could actually eat. Their menu was terrible because American school system menu is terrible. This was high school, by the way. And so because I couldn't eat those things, I would sneak out of our school, go around the back. There wasn't a fence in the back of our school. There was just, it was like a baseball field, and then it opened up into a park. I would go through the park, and there was a housing development that was kind of like a bougie housing development behind our school. I would go to the bougie housing development, there was a Starbucks, a McDonald's, and a sports bar, and I would go into one of those 3 and go eat lunch and then come back. And the only way that people got in trouble for this is if they weren't back in time. And I remember being reprimanded for doing it because some professor caught me doing it. But I was never caught for not being back in time. I was always back in time. But the excuse that they gave when they ratified not being allowed to do that into the school book was that you wouldn't be back in time. There were a lot of school book things that I did. There were so many. A lot of them were dress code violations, because that was the hill I decided to die on, because I guess I always was a fashionable bitch. I don't know. But the hill that I chose to die on was always dress code, and it was usually, you can't wear that. And then I would point out that someone else in the school was wearing something that was also against dress code, and I would say, if I have to go home, you have to force this person to go home. And that was always the argument. And then it turned into me standing in front of the school, waiting for people to come in, pointing out dress code violations, and then listing them, taking them all to the office, and saying, if you make me go home, all of these people have to go home. And I would do that daily. I camped out in the front of the school multiple times. Actually, I was known for standing there. Like, all of my friends knew where to find me in the beginning of the school, like, before bells rang or anything, because I would be standing there. And no one knew why I always stood there. And I think I got into a couple of fights because I always stood there, and people thought that that was their spot or whatever. And I was like, I don't care where I stand. I'm just looking for people not following the dress code. And like, a lot of people listening to this would probably say like, oh, you were, an asshole, and like, you are a rules lawyer, and da 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 da, and like, you probably, if you play D&D, you're probably a rules lawyer. No, because the thing is, I never had issues with rules if they were enforced fairly upon everyone and used like rules should be used. If they were enforced, they had a good reason. The main thing being, and someone with autism, the main thing, you have to have a good reason for a rule. If you don't have a reason for telling me why I can't do something, but you tell me I can't do it, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do it. Like, you have to give me a reason. So like, the main thing was they needed to have a reason. If they didn't have a reason, sometimes you could still get away with it if you were able to show me that the rule was enforced unilaterally across the board. Like, if they had showed me everyone follows the same dress code and you all have uniforms and no one's uniform is better or worse than anyone else's, at which I had a school like that, then yes, that sure, fine, whatever, sure. But the fact that our dress code was casual clothes, and then they would tell me that I couldn't wear something that I was wearing, but then someone else had dyed hair or something else that was also against the dress code. That's where the little light in my brain turns on and goes, oh, time to exist solely out of spite. And I think that's the same little light that came on when the person that I talked about in the previous stream said what they did about me, because this is a person who like is also, I wouldn't call them an artist, because they're an artist, but they're not a visual artist. So it's someone in the art, community, I guess, like in the sphere of the arts. And because of that, I think the little light in my brain lit up and was like, oh, this is an unfair enforcement of something. Time to shatter everything. And sometimes I'm thankful for that little voice, and other times I'm just like, can we not today? But this was actually a good one. At least this one was good. Alright, let's see here. Where are we at on this? God, blending his show outfit with his not outfit, his not outfit from the show with his game version is very difficult, because he in the game version wears very elaborate clothing, and in the show version seems to hate anything in the shape of or form of wearing a shirt. So it's very difficult to give him appropriate clothing. I'm gonna just go for like some game appropriate stuff, and I can always tone it down for the reference to the show, but I think the game appropriate outfit is just prettier. I would rather draw this one, so we're just gonna draw this one because I think it's more fun. I'm not gonna go totally accurate with it. I am gonna make his cravat slightly different. He usually wears some sort of vest, so add buttons. Okay. Ugh. We're at like just at an hour, so I think I'm gonna take like a little 5-minute break, and I'm gonna go make that coffee because I just yawned again and I'm so tired. Okay, good night, go sleeps. I cannot go sleeps. I wish to finish more work before I go sleeps, but you have a good sleep. I'm gonna make a coffee, and I will be returned with caffeine. I'm gonna put up the BRB screen and leave the music running, and I will return with coffee and a unique novelty mug, as I usually do. I think for the rest of the night, I'm just gonna finish up the lines that I'm doing on Alucard. It shouldn't be too long. I'm probably only gonna stream for like an hour or two because I'm really tired, and I really wanna get like a relatively okay night's sleep. Tomorrow is grocery day. Want to make sure that I'm getting my groceries. So let me look at all of my settings, make sure we're going good on everything on the stream. We've got our microphone running well and all of that. Music audio running good. Okay, cool. Yeah, I will BRB. Let me put up my BRB screen, and I'm gonna go make a coffee. So I will see you in a few. there we go. Now it wants to work. Sometimes microphone likes to be rude. Cool. I'm waiting on my coffee to brew right now, so might not be doing any drawing right now, but I'm gonna be eating candied ginger and chilling. So it looks like we don't have too many people in chat tonight. I mean, Mondays are usually pretty slow anyway. But if you're here, hi, welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. I will be also hanging out here for a little while longer. Trying to think of some fun things to chat about right now. If anyone has any like questions or anything, let me know. But if not, let's see, what can we talk about? Well, one really fun thing is that I am likely going to be creating a comic on Webtoon soon. I'm getting all the pages together. Basically, when you create comics for anything, you should have a buffer. I'm trying to get that buffer together right now. I've been saying I've been getting ready to make a comic for months now, since middle of last year, actually. That's where the writing started. So I started rewriting the script. I had the script from when I was 18, which obviously needed a lot of rehashing. And then I started rewriting the script when Halloween hit last year, so around the end of October, because I didn't have anything else to do. It seemed like a good idea. I am now done with this. Ooh, this is gonna be loud. Sorry. But I started rewriting that around the end of last year, and got the script mostly done by January of this year. Hashed all of that out, got it all ready, and then started doing the actual pages in January on and off throughout my timing of my other work, and sometimes I had to take weeks off and everything, but I'm finally coming down to it to where I have at least sketched out and thumbnailed the buffer that I would like to have. Thumbnailed and sketched to the level that I could release an episode and feel somewhat comfortable, but I still want to have a couple more things done just because I know myself and I know that I am disabled and I like to have a little more preparation before I release things. So I'm going to be working on it for a little while, but it should be out by summer like I said it was going to be. I'm excited for it because it's probably going to be a webcomic, and it's probably going to be something that grows over time, that I'm going to, build out the story over time. All that I can say without like releasing too much about it on the stream is that it's a dark horror fantasy book, and the sole premise revolves around someone who collects things, and it's got a lot of elements that are similar to, like, my favorite influences are things like Twilight Zone, and there are a lot of modern iterations of the Twilight Zone, like Magnus Archives sort of hits on some of that vibe, some of that like same level, same storytelling groove, It's got some of that. It's got a lot of weird time manipulation stuff, but not a lot of time travel. More like, I don't know. I'm not really sure how to codify it other than saying it's very fantasy dark academia. Except when I say that, everyone immediately like ears go straight to Magnus Archives, which I love the Magnus Archives, don't get me wrong. Since I've actually been able to read this transcripts of it, it's very good. But this story, it's less cosmic horror, and more grounded horror, I guess, is the way that I can put it. In the way that, like, things like, I don't know, things like Little Nightmares, right? The game Little Nightmares is not cosmic horror per se. It has some cosmic horror elements, but the horror of Little Nightmares is smaller. It's, I mean, obviously Little Nightmares, but the horror of Little Nightmares is more about, like, Little Nightmares 3 has some cosmic horror in there with the tower and things like that, but the rest of the gameplay is more about the people's stories, the monsters' stories, and how those evolve and devolve over time and things like that. And this is more about that. This is more of a story that focuses on internal stuff than external, and is more like if Lovecraft were to write cosmic horror about the self, is the only way that I can put it. I know that that sounds really weird. It's just, it's been a vent piece for me for a lot of things, and because I am trans and have went through years of gender dysphoria, and then after the years of dysphoria, went through years of body dysmorphia, and still kind of shakily struggle with that. Body dysmorphia is ongoing. Like, I had that before I was trans and have that now. It hasn't changed, but this story became a vent piece for that. The main character, who is now not the main character, became a side character that deals with a lot of that angst, I guess, a lot of those feelings. So, you know, I sort of put a lot of my, it's almost diary entry-esque, so I put a lot of that in there, and it has a lot of those emotions in it. So it's horror, but it's there. I feel like horror can go one of two ways. You can either go, like, a lot of the horror that I've seen written recently has been, you either are eldritch horror, which is there are external entities that we don't understand that are controlling things, or if you want to tell a grounded story, there is monster horror, or monster of the week kind of genre, where, like, super amazing, but it has to do with the classic monsters of horror. So a lot of horror genre things become these, like, well, what's a classic horror monster? Vampires. Okay, well, how do we, you know, revamp vampires for for the next stage? So, like, things like Resident Evil do this really well. Resident Evil, the recent game, evidence of this, does the classic horror really well, where we're not at all really, I mean, like, we're gonna know some of what Ethan Winters is thinking throughout the game. That's kind of the given from him being the titular character, but we don't really know much about Ethan Winters' psychological state, or his internal monologue, or his internal thoughts, really, and none of that is terrifying even if we do know it. So, like, all we know about Ethan Winters' internal monologue is stuff that corroborates the horror outside, right? So his internal monologue is an addition to the outside space, the horror of the external reality that he lives in. So there's that, or there's the cosmic horror, and usually when you get the cosmic horror, you get the opposite effect, where you have less interaction with the external, and more interaction with the internal anguish of, like, this cosmic being coming to fruition in front of you, and, you know, what that means for you, finding out that you're this tiny insignificant bug in the world, and all of that stuff. So that is usually focused inward, but focusing inward by contrasting with an outward force. And a lot of horror is balancing that tug and pull of those two elements. And I would say that what I'm writing and what I have is more what if the cosmic entity was yourself, if that makes sense, because that's how it feels a lot for me. Also, hello Dandy, thanks for the raid. Hello. I am here doing painting of Alucard. I'm not painting right now, I'm just chatting because I'm waiting on my coffee to be done, which I think it just was. So I might pop over and grab my coffee out of the coffee maker. Sorry to leave as soon as you raided, but anyway, we're here chatting. I'm talking about the comic that I'm going to be releasing soon, as well as drawing some fan art of Alucard that I didn't finish on Friday for Fan Art Friday. So that's what we're doing here. Yes, thank you for saying that you love Alucard. I also love Alucard. One of my absolute favorite good pure boys. Love him to bits. Love him. Also super excited for the next season coming out soon, so fingers crossed that it's going to be good. Alucard needs a break. Give him a break. But yeah, I'm gonna go grab my coffee. I will be back and we will do some more chatting stuff. I'm gonna turn my microphone off, but I'm not gonna put us on the BRB screen again because I'm only gonna be like a second to go pour some coffee. Alucard does deserve love. Okay, there we go. I've returned with a cup of coffee. Yay! I'm gonna let it chill for a bit and kind of chat a little more, get back into streaming, go back to my stream setup here. But yeah, as I was saying, I plan on releasing the next comic in July, and it's got some horror elements, it's got some dark fantasy stuff. One of the main characters is trans. It's just a fun, good time. It's a real fun, good time. I'm excited for it to finally be out there because I've been working on it for so long. Like when you have a story since you're 18 years old and you're my age, it just feels odd to finally have that come out, to have that happen, you know? But yeah, when it releases, I'll be saying more about it. So far, all I can give you is vague mood feelings, and that's about it, which is unfortunate, but, you know, I can just hope and trust that people will actually like it when it comes out. I always have this, like, fear that no one's going to. That's just, like, I guess all creators have that, but it's a fun, good time. It's a good romp through some character study stuff and things like that. Oh, I promised before the raid, I promised that I would show off my terrible novelty mugs. So every time I stream, I usually have coffee, and I usually have it in a terrible mug of some sort. Usually a pun mug, because I was discussing earlier that I am literally becoming a dad as we speak. I'm slowly getting the dad disease. I'm moving my mug so it's closer to me. But I've started getting the dad disease slowly. I've started collecting tools. I have a staple gun now, just like things like that in my life. So this is the coffee mug. Hopefully I can hold this in a way that you can see it. But yeah, that's the novelty mug of tonight. It's a pick your poison mug. It also glows in the dark, so that's pretty neat. But that has been my favorite thing recently, is to just have like a random novelty mug, usually a different one each stream. All right, let's thanks. It's very good. I get most of them. Where I live relatively close to a Michael's, so when it's that spooky season, I go and I just buy novelty mugs and then just have a lot. So this one's one of my favorites because it glows in the dark. I have another one that is cauldron shaped and says, I like my coffee how I like my magic, which is also good. Thanks for following me, by the way. But I like that one as well. And then I also have another one that is a D&D themed mug because I'm a DM, and it's just a rolled nat 1 and it says well shit. And that one's the one that, like, if I'm drawing D&D stuff, I gotta use that one. Gotta go with the theme. But yeah, novelty mugs are one of my, like, small interests, I guess. I never thought I would be this dad. I never thought I would just become the person that collects random novelty mugs. But, like, here I am. And it kind of snuck up on me. But it became one of these things that I loved because I had these roommates while I was in university who had this, like, fervent love of decorating for Halloween and would take us to Michael's or to, like, a shop like this and just purchase the most ridiculous items for the house. And as we did, it just became ingrained in my brain that, like, these items have some inherent, like, happiness value to them now, and I love that. So I've just been, like, using them as these little, almost like when you have, like, a teddy bear when you're a child and you're like, I need a moment of happy, and now I have these mugs. So when I get up in the morning, which is usually ungodly hours of the morning at this point, because I'm generally drawing from 6 a.m. until late in the night most days, but when I get up in the morning and I go on a run with my dog, the first thing I see is one of these mugs. Well, first thing I see is my dog's face, which is one thing, but the next thing I see is one of these mugs, because I usually make coffee, like now, at night, have 1 cup, go to bed, and then set it for the coffee maker to finish brewing in the morning. Just little adult things that you end up doing when you realize that you can no longer function without caffeine. And for me, having severe ADHD, that's definitely a thing that I need in order to function. And severe and unmedicated ADHD too. So I self-medicate a lot with caffeine. I don't recommend it. It's not fun, but it does work. When you have a deadline like I do often, and you're doing freelance and your deadline is in 18 hours and you have not started the thing, caffeine works. But anyways, yeah, so let's see here, checking on a couple of stream settings here. If you are new here, which I assume from the raid a couple of you are, I sit here and ramble and do draw a lot. I do many a draw. I hang out, and usually I am doing things like this on Fridays. So usually Fan Art Friday is a thing for me where I will pick a series that I am in love with at the time. I usually don't prepare it. I just decide that I'm going to do it. Pick that series and start doing fan art of it that Friday. I used to try to finish it on that Friday, and then I realized that I wanted more finished work. So now, sometimes Fan Art Friday bleeds over onto Monday if I feel like it. And it just depends on what I feel like drawing that day, whether or not I will end up doing Fan Art Friday. What will be on the docket for that time. Like, I've done many a series recently. I think one of the most recent ones was Dimension 20, which is a podcast / real live tabletop game show. So that was one of the most recent ones. I've also done stuff for the Dragon Prince. That was really fun. Still need to finish that piece. I've done quite a bit of fan arts on Fan Art Friday. Normally on Mondays, as I was discussing before y'all dropped in here, I normally am working on comics on Mondays. So usually I'll be doing something to do with the pages specifically. Most of the time it's something that has to do with like laying out the pages, doing sketches, something along those lines, doing layouts or something. And if I'm not doing comics on Mondays, I am doing commissions. So you can usually find me here on Mondays around 5 p.m. doing commission work, which, just for reference, I guess I can show you what that usually entails or looks like. So this is what Fan Art Friday usually looks like for me, which it's usually just finishing up a elaborate painting sketch that I wanted to do. And for commissions, they usually look like either like this, which this is a commission panel with a bunch of thumbnails in it. And if I'm doing something like this, I am generally finalizing those thumbnails to make them presentable to the audience. So I'm adding poses, I'm adding backgrounds, and it's all very rough. There's not a lot for you to see. So if I'm doing this on a Monday, usually I'm doing more finished thumbnails, more like the ones that are near the top here. Or they look like something like this. And these are more finalized sketch commissions. So, but yeah, this is usually what Mondays entail for me. Usually the rest of the week I am doing other art stuff. You not sleep, no more sleep, sad time. But usually the rest of the week I'm doing other art stuff as well. On Wednesday I do character design stuff. If I'm not doing character designs on Wednesdays, I'm doing comics, so it's all related to comics in some form. And then Fridays is Fan Art Friday. If I do stream on Sundays, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If I stream on Sundays, I'm usually finishing Fan Art Friday stuff. So, but that's generally my MO. Also, I really like a lot of spooky things, so I tend to draw a lot of spooky art. So if you like spooky art, congrats on finding this channel, because that's what I do. Cool, so what do we need next? We've done the pose. Need to finish up like the bottom half of the outfit. God, altering this outfit to mesh with the rest of everything is just so weird. To have it go with what I've already drawn, because I don't want to redraw it to make it exactly accurate to the game, and my goal was never to make it accurate to the game anyway, but I just like his more ornate outfit in the game. I mean, I understand that animation, you have to dumb down a lot of your character designs for animation, but I would have liked to see this game go, this animation based off of this game go all out and just full force ahead, and make some really, really out there stuff. But I understand why they didn't. Okay, trying to do this. One thing, for the longest time I had like a I guess personal ban on watching live stream YouTubers who play video games, not as like not for any big reason, like I wasn't burned by anybody or anything like that. Obviously there's some that I think are better people than others, but like I wasn't really a fan of any of them, so I can't really speak on any of that. But recently I've had to rescind a lot of that because Resident Evil came out and I must see the game even if I can't play it. I'm so entranced. I love Resident Evil as a franchise. I just like horror games, like just flat out. I will do anything for a new horror game. So I've just been watching all of my TV viewing, which I have very little time for, has been watching Resident Evil playthroughs by YouTubers that I know nothing about. But they're Usually it's like I try to go continuity, so I pick one and I just follow them. Like most recently, like I'm not loyal to any game player, but most recently it's been Markiplier because that was the first person that I saw playing the game, and first person to upload, I think. So I was like, okay, I'll just follow Markiplier's playthrough. I don't usually follow these people, but sure. And that's been where I'm at recently. I haven't been watching any television. I've just been watching Resident Evil playthroughs because I want to see the game. I have a strong feeling that I'll never get to play it because it's expensive, number one, and number two, like I don't really have time to play games. I hardly have time to play the games I do already have in my adult life. So I buy a lot of games, I don't play a lot of games, and when I realized that about myself, I just sort of realized like I don't have the money to purchase this game just because I think the story is cool, you know? And also I'm not a large fan of shooter games. Like FPS games are not a draw for me, even though the game story and the gameplay looks great. They're not games that I personally enjoy, so I would rather not spend a lot of money for the story of a game that I'm probably not going to have fun with. Even though I love Resident Evil games, it's just sort of not worth it for me. So I don't think I'm going to actually purchase the game, but I do think that I'm probably going to end up following through and watching Markiplier play the game for a long time, because at that point, why wouldn't you? Like, it's almost like freely having the story read to you. That's essentially what I want. And I guess this is just more evidence that I am a storyteller through and through, and like this is why I'm in comics. This is why I do comics, is that I will do anything for a good story in a game. I know there's people out there who think like, oh, story doesn't matter, or people who like skip through dialogue, and like, you're valid, sure, play games however you want, but like for me, if the game does not have a satisfying story, it's not a game. And like, I'm really picky about this too. I get so hype up for the story of games that if the story is not the selling point, I will be angry that the game exists if the story used to be a selling point. So like, franchise wise, everyone loved Breath of the Wild. I love Breath of the Wild now, currently. When it came out, I did not like Breath of the Wild. I was a Zelda traditionalist. I was a person who was angry that they went open world with it, and sacrificed the story to do so. I thought that the game was going to be bad, and I didn't like it. I was worried. I was like, this looks terrible. They're not giving us any story. They're not focusing on anything good. They're just kind of like doing whatever they want, and they're not listening to their fans. And then I played it and I was like, this is actually pretty good, and there is enough story in this game. They just didn't put it in the promo. That's fine. But that's my reaction to any game that has any moments where it looks like there might be less of a story. I'm just like, okay, this is gonna be terrible. How dare the game studios not focus on storytelling? That's like a big tenet that you have to focus on. Like, I just harp on it, and I know it's like a bad trait that I have, but I can't stop doing it. It's what I like in the games. So Resident Evil, the new one, comes out, and not only vampires, which is clearly a big interest for me, but so not only like evil vampires and stuff, but really interesting like plot elements that, from what I've seen, I don't want to spoil anything, but the plot elements look so cool. It's like, I feel like the team successfully modernized Resident Evil in a way that it wasn't really modernized in the last couple of games. I think the last game I played was 6 though, so I'm not sure if because I believe this one is 8, right? Or is it 9? or 10. Ooh. But since the last game I played was 6, I'm not really certain if in the last like few decades of games they've fixed a lot of stuff or like modernized things, but it looks really good and the graphics are great too. So I'm just excited. I'm excited anytime there's a new horror game to gush all over. You give me something spooky and there are vampires and and I can just enjoy it in my own little world by myself. Sure, yes. Oh, there's gore? I'm there. It's usually how that goes. So yeah, if anyone else like is enjoying watching other people play Resident Evil, let's be friends. I need to make friends with people who have Resident Evil so I can play it. I've been trying to do that with Hades for a while because I don't think I'm gonna purchase Hades, and if I do, I'm gonna get it on sale. Not that I don't want to purchase Hades, I do. I just want to budget for games a little bit, and Hades was gonna be a purchase of mine recently, but I didn't want to spend all of that cost. I wanted to like keep things in the budget for maybe a little later for other stuff I need to do in my actual real life. So I didn't want to purchase Hades right off the bat. But now that some of the hype has died down and it's become a little bit like everyone already has it, I'm thinking I might wait until there's a big sale on it and go and buy it. I mean, it's not expensive. It's just, you know, it's that or buy coffee or that or buy tacos or something. I'm gonna pick the tacos, and I hate to say that, but gotta make the adult choice a lot of the time. Alright, finished the tunic part. Now I have to figure out what in the world I was trying to do with the cloak. Ay ay ay. From what I can tell, this was supposed to be the sword when I had it in the other position, but I'm gonna make it a part of the cloak now because I kind of like this vibe that goes right here. Kind of goes like this, drapes around everything. Same with over here. I'd love to have this sort of very drapey, almost mantle piece. And then, what are we doing for the rest of the cloak? Let me get rid of this and see what did I draw? Alright, so from what it looks like... Oh, I see. Okay. I see what I did. I see. I did this. Oh man. I don't know why Clip Studio does this, but it glitches out sometimes. There we go. What I did was I made the cloak go out like this and then pulled it back in to fold in on itself like this down here. Hi. Hi, baby cheeks. Let me get me some coffee so that I stop yawning on stream. Okay. It's going good. It is going pretty good. I'm making slow but steady progress on the Alucard painting. Let's see what else did. Okay. and then I pulled this in front here, kind of made a cutout. Thank you. Thank you for loving my art. That's very sweet of you to say. Okay. Figuring out the folds in fabric takes like 5D brain. It's very not easy to do. 'Cause one thing that I didn't learn until I was much older of an artist is you can do pleats and folds in fabric really easily. There's like an easy way and there's a difficult way. The easy way to do pleats in fabric, let me zoom in on a place and I'll just like real quick show this, but easy way to do pleats in fabric is to draw this squiggle and then connect the lines to where the fabric is being folded from. So say that it's the center, it's this dot. This is a circular piece of fabric. Connect the lines, and you end up with pleats in your fabric, and then you just shade accordingly. So like this, and you have a pleated piece of fabric. So that's like the super fast, easy way to do pleats. But the really complicated and really annoying Renaissance way that I draw pleats in fabric is by imagining the fabric as chunks. So the fabric lays like this. That's chunk 1. Chunk 2 lays behind it. Chunk 3 lays on top of that one. Chunk 4 comes down from where chunk 3 is, and so on. And then from here, from the way that I have chunks, I just connect them in places and figure out where they would overlap and go from there. And you end up with a more complicated fabric overlay and more divots where the fabric would fold and lay on top of itself. It gets a little more complex and a little harder to draw. I always choose this version as opposed to this version, unless I'm doing like a really cute clown drawing. This one's really good, but I always choose the second method because it's more of like the Renaissance method of drawing fabric, which was mostly just drawing like chunks of brush strokes. So I usually do that, but here I did a bit of both, so the fabric laying on top of each other is acting a little strange. So I'm trying to figure out how to connect these two bits together, and that's what's using a lot of my brain power right now. But I think I got it. Because I think it should be something where there's a piece that goes behind here, because this piece tapers downward. So should be something like that. There we go. How long have I been doing art for? It depends on who you ask. I mean, I would say professionally, like being paid to do art, that would be since 2013. That was the first like paid art job that I got. Which in 2013 I would have been 19 years old. That was professionally. And then like just drawing, like learning to draw, I've been drawing since I was a baby. Like art was one of the first things that I learned to do. I almost learned art before I learned speech, because I have pretty like aggressive autism, so I didn't learn to speak like normal human times. So my mother in order to get me to communicate, often would have me draw what I wanted, because I would refuse to use words. So I learned art very quickly, and just kind of stuck with it. It's one of the only things that stuck with me. That and music. I had the choice between art and music when I was younger, and I chose art, but both of them are equal levels of love for me. But yeah, I've been doing art for ages and ages, since I was very, very small. But professionally, like to a level that I would be proud to say that I am an artist, 2013. 2013 was also the year that I finally got into like formal art classes in uni. So because when you start art university, when you go to university for art, your first year isn't your formal art education. It's mostly learning like basics of drawing and things like that, and learning, and you go through your preliminary studies, so like maths, English, all of that stuff. So you learn that stuff first, and then you go through and do your art degree stuff. And when I got to my art degree stuff is right around the time that I started actually getting commissions, actually working, actually making some money, that sort of stuff. Also working on, because when you're in uni, you're surrounded by other artists, and a lot, at least in the university that I went to, we didn't specialize in one type of art. It was just an all general arts university. So we had people in our classes who couldn't draw, but needed illustrators, you know, that sort of thing. So around that time is when I started getting people coming to me and being like, hey, can you make a poster for my gallery opening, or can you make a poster for my video that's coming out, or whatever. Or also around that time is, I mentioned this before, but around that time is when YouTube speed paint artists started kicking off, and I used to be a speed paint artist for the longest time, and around that time is when that, like, the algorithm really liked speed paint artists. I don't do that anymore because it is bad for your health, but yeah, that was like kind of how I started professionally working in art, I guess. Nowadays I do commissions and fan art and stuff, and I'm working on a comic. But that's where I be. That's how I got into art. It's a fun profession when you're not starving on the streets. Although the starving artist thing is kind of a myth. It's something that like we perpetuate, but it's a myth, but it's a fun myth. But yeah. Alright, there we go. Yeah, that's starting to look okay. I was worried about the way that I was doing the back, or the mantle here, but I think it looks alright. I was just worried that it wasn't clicking with the rest of what I drew, but that's fine. It's going good. Okay, another coffee sip here. Alright, so we've got that, and last little bit is doing the bit in the front foreground, and then I have to start working on the castle, and oh lord, is the castle going to be a lot. So I'm gonna finish up this foreground bit so that I can begin on that castle stuff in the background. The castle background I will not be rendering as much as I'm doing right here. There's how to draw gigs on Fiverr? Really? I've been on Fiverr before. I don't really like... That's so funny. I didn't know there was like like, is it people actually teaching like a how to draw book, but like you pay money? There's a gig for everything. Yeah, that makes sense. Gig economy stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just people like teach like it's like a class, or do they have like, because if it's a class, why not go to Skillshare, right? And I've done like a Skillshare class before, or I've helped someone with a Skillshare class, so like that makes sense to me. But like just a drawing book, like I feel like you could go to a shop and buy, well, I might be a little spoiled in that respect. I about said I feel like you could go to a shop and buy a drawing book, but like I just remembered that I live in a city dedicated to the arts, and there are shops here that specialize in books related to the arts, so maybe other people don't have access to that, so maybe you can't go to the store and just buy a drawing book. Maybe that's not an option for most people. I'm not sure how the gigs work. Okay. Maybe I'll get curious one day. I do have a Fiverr account. I don't use it much because personally, like, the level... Fiverr is like a weird place. I've gotten a couple of commissions, like other people, like ordering commissions from other people on Fiverr, and I have done a couple of commissions on Fiverr. And my consensus is that because it's gig economy, I don't know if I'm like reading this wrong, but a lot of the people on Fiverr seem to want things for extremely cheap, and and as someone who's like gone to school for art, I'm kind of like, I have set prices, you know, that I'm not willing to part with. I raise my prices, like, but my account on Fiverr does have like pretty cheap prices, and for the most part I just kind of leave them at what they are. Yeah, Fiverr does take 20% of what you get. And most of my accounts on Fiverr, like the one account I think I left open on Fiverr is just like little small like sketch commissions and D&D commissions, because that stuff's easy. I could shell that out in a minute, so like it doesn't, that stuff I don't mind getting 20% taken away from me, you know. But like, especially for the exposure, like if I was gonna get commissions, which I did open commissions recently, but if I was gonna get commissions the traditional way of just being like, hey Twitter, I have commissions open, like I don't get as much traction with that as I do on Fiverr, so it's 20% isn't bad for the promotion that Fiverr does for you, I guess, but the promotion comes with a caveat that you have to follow Fiverr's like methodology when you do things, because they also have a bunch of rules for, like, not rules, but like a bunch of last time I used it, they had a bunch of things where it was like they gauge your timeliness and your like how often you complete your orders, which like I would never leave an order uncompleted. That's why would you accept an order and then leave it uncompleted? That just seems rude. But you know, they have all these like things that gauge your competence, I guess, as like a seller, and one of the things is your response rate, and your response rate has to be above a certain amount to like get promotion from Fiverr or something. And I remember just quitting because as someone who does art, like actual art, yeah, it keeps track of you, but as someone who does like art and went to art school, I don't have a lot of time to like sit on Fiverr and read my messages, especially not on Fiverr. I will on like Twitter if I'm getting commissions, or like Instagram if I'm getting commissions, like I'll read my messages then, but I'm not, it puts a lot of pressure on you. Like I'm not gonna sit on Fiverr for the entire day waiting for someone to message me, because it docks your your points or your point total or something if you don't read the messages immediately when you get them, which is weird to me because it's like business day. At least, I don't know. I don't like the culture of always being available, especially as an artist. That's like a pet peeve of mine. So anything that perpetuates that, I'm just like, no, feels bad. Feels bad. Oh yeah, no, I did get spam messages when I was on Fiverr the last time. I remember getting spams, and they would still dock my point total if I didn't answer them. So I had to answer them with this like polite rhetoric that was just like, "Hi, thanks for your interest. Unfortunately, I am not available for work like that." And it was like the spams that you get on Fiverr are really predatory, because they're spams about getting work with company X or whatever, but it's not a famous or popular company usually. It's usually like a random company. And there'll be spams that where they'll say something like, "We're looking for people to join our team. We're making a game," or "We're making a whatever, and you should look into our team and you should see if you can apply." And they'll like talk you up, and they'll say, "We saw your portfolio and we thought it was great and we thought you'd be a great fit," and all this stuff, you know. And like me, I've been in the art world long enough that I know a pitch when I see it. Like, I know a spiel. I'm not gonna be swindled, you know, like that's not how this is gonna go. So like I see those and I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested. If you were a legitimate art team for a legitimate game, you wouldn't be on Fiverr. That's not how this works. But yeah, it's so much better to just get commissions through like Twitter, PayPal, and I personally don't use PayPal just because PayPal has some shady practices. I use it for family members and for close friends. The downside with PayPal is if you do business stuff on PayPal, you have to be really careful, because if you get scammed by someone who's commissioning you, like say they report from PayPal that they, like, if you're like me and you do digital commissions, they can report that they never received it. PayPal won't look into it and they'll refund them. And then you lose $50 out of your account. And I've had it happen to me a couple of times. So I don't use PayPal as much anymore. I use Square most often, because the Square system is really good. You can write invoices and do all of that. So it's just a much better model, I guess. But yeah, Fiverr has a lot of issues behind it, and I don't like them promoting the gig economy, because it's ultimately bad for everyone. So I don't know, but I'm still on there, because if you can make a buck, you make a buck. You know, gotta get that money somehow. So still hang out on Fiverr from time to time. Usually I am there for no longer than to read the message I got pinged. Yeah, pros and cons of everything, especially in the art world. There's not a site that you can go to that doesn't have some issues. But that's, I mean, everything's gonna have issues. You just have to kind of pick your poison at one point. And for me, apparently right now, that's Square and Webtoon. Which Webtoon is a grift and a half, but you know, at least it's a nice website. At least they do well. They do well by their artists. That's all I can ask for. But the art world out there is, you would think that there wouldn't be a lot of scams targeted toward artists. You'd think it'd be more like, and I talked a little bit about this earlier, but you'd think that the scams would be more like artists targeting other people. No, the most scams in the art world are artists being scammed by like job offers and opportunities and stuff that aren't real, or like college things that are predatory and stuff like that. So it's just, you have to learn to read the signs of like a bad deal real quickly, or you get in deep water fast. And I've had friends end up working for companies and then be like, I didn't realize that they, were gonna do this. And it's like, yeah, it happens. Like the biggest one that a lot of people talk about, I guess that like most outside the art world wouldn't know about, is Disney. Like working for Disney is hell for artists. I would never recommend that anyone work for Disney. And that's not just working in like the parks, but working as a Disney artist. Even if you get the dream job, if you're on like a major movie franchise, your soul is owned by Disney for the rest of your days. It is. It's the dream job if you always and forever want to work for Disney. Like if you want to work for Disney when you're 85 years old, more power to you. Have fun. But like, yeah. Same sentiment. I would also rather work by myself. That's why I'm here. That's why I stream. It's not the whole reason why, but that's one of the reasons. Because I'm not dealing with shenanigans. I would rather just get my own commissions and handle my work that way. Go to cons, be my own boss, that stuff. Sell prints, all of that. That stuff's, it's not a stable living, but it's a easier living than some other things, especially if you're like in between stuff with art and you're trying to figure out where you want to go. It's a really good way to kind of keep yourself afloat until you get that cash money and are able to not do that. Cons are very not sustainable, but they are helpful when you're low on cash. Stickers and stuff, that's dope. I love that. I also sell stickers. I wonder if I have any around here that I could show. I do not, unfortunately. I do have dice. Hold on. Oof. So, other than stickers, I also make dice. So this is my big selling venture, I guess, at cons. But stuff like this sells really well. Stickers sell well. All kinds of stuff like that is some of the best stuff that you can do. Honestly, like 10 out of 10. If you can find a way to like turn your art into a thing that sells, other than like, strangely, you would think that art prints, if you're like me and you have an art style like mine, that's like, I mean, I in no way think that my art is hella good or anything, but if you have an art style that's like sellable, like you would think that prints would sell, right? They don't. They really don't. Like, even if they're great, you still kind of struggle to sell prints at cons. Most people are there for merch, so if you can find something merchable, you're like leagues ahead of other artists. Like stickers, like dice. One of my like big ticket sellers is at some of the cons I go to, I sell hand painted sketchbooks, because people like to use them for their what are they called, D&D journals and stuff, and as a DM, like I do too, so lots of the time hand painted sketchbooks sell really well. Buttons, like, I don't know if you probably can't see behind me all that well, but I have a button maker that is like right behind my head. That lever in the back there, that's my button maker. Button makers are really good investments if you already make stickers, because buttons sell really, really well. And most of the time, it's not a lot of effort to change a sticker design into a button design. So highly recommend if like you're looking to get into something that like is a little more like shells out a little more cash. Buttons, hands down, really good investment. I started making bank on buttons when I started doing them. They're a little less sellable now because people have switched over to enamel pins, but you can still make really good money on buttons at most cons. Because like the same amount of people that love enamel pins will still love buttons if you have really good ones. It's just about having the right button for the right time, I've found. Because there's cons where I will not sell buttons for months and I'll be like, what is wrong? People don't like buttons anymore. And then I'll make the one button that like hits right, you know, and then people will just like go head over heels for it, and I'll sell out of them. Like the most recent one was I was at a con before COVID, obviously, but I was at a con with a friend, and it was a local con, and it was a horror comic con, and I made a Freddy vs. Jason button, and I was the only one in a horror convention that had a Freddy vs. Jason button. People had them individually, but I had buttons that, like, there were two sets that they were like pitted against each other, and that sold like hotcakes. That was like having gold in my pocket. That was a really, really good time. But that sort of stuff is good sellable material and doesn't cost a lot to upgrade if you already make stickers. Because doing dice from stickers, as someone who made that jump, is not easy. Dice and resin is hard to work with. Dice are fiddly and tiny. Getting the resin into the dice molds is hard. I made my own dice molds, so on top of that, working with silicone, all that stuff, no fun. Absolutely no fun at all. So like, I wouldn't recommend doing making dice as like a money-making scheme. Most of the time, just like, I make dice because I think they're fun, and I make them for my friends, because what I put into them at this point is not enough to make big bank at them at cons, because it's like, I would, in order to make big bank with dice at cons, I would have to charge what they're worth, which would be like $60 a set, which would work for some of my dice. So like the bigger versions, the bigger dice that I have would work. I don't think I can even reach any of my larger dice. They're all up here, and they're all difficult to locate. If I can find a set, I will show what my larger dice look like, but I don't think any of them are reachable in here. Yeah, no, I think they're all packed away somewhere. But usually my larger dice, because they're pretty hefty D20s, they usually have some sort of thing inside them, like a scene or something to that effect, some sort of like actual thing, whereas the smaller ones, littler dice, are just little dudes. They're usually one color tone and swirly, or two color tones and iridescent. Just like anything that I can find that I find is fun to have or would be nice. And they're usually like, I know it sounds counterintuitive because a lot of dice makers like test their resin before they make their dice or whatever. Dice for me are usually the resin testing thing that I do. And then I just make dice out of them because like I want to test a resin mix or I want to test a color mix, and then I realized that I could just make a little dice set of the color mix and then test the resin that way. So I test all my resins by making dice and then decide whether or not I want to make a bigger project. And for like bigger projects, I have things like I make resin little chess pieces and stuff like that. These get kind of bubbly at the bottoms, but you can make little stuff like this and things. And these ones are just clear, but I have ones with things inside them. So, you know, that's usually where all of my resin testing with dice goes. All of my efforts go into trying to make larger resin projects, because I like working with resin. I just prefer not to work with something as fiddly as dice. And if I'm going to work with something as fiddly as dice, I'm just going to use them to test stuff. But yeah. Gosh. Also, that reminds me, I need to actually order prints for something, for a con coming up. Not like a con, but like a little art sale. I need to look through my print stack again. God, like, doing art all the time is so difficult because you're like constantly, since you're your own business manager, you gotta constantly go through every single thing that you make and do and be like, all right, what do I need to order? What are we out of stock on? What do I have to make again? What, like, not only that, but updating designs. Updating designs is hell. Whenever I have a design that I think it looks old or it looks unkempt, I always hate updating it because I want all of the stuff at my table to look like my art. And when I go through bursts of my art looking different or changing in some way, I always want to update the design so it looks similar to the rest of the stuff on my table. And I have big ol' like anxiety around feeling like I don't have an art style, so whenever this happens, I like try to update every design that I have for everything, and it sucks. And whenever that happens, I always end up just running myself ragged. Like, I need new designs for every single thing I've ever sold ever. And it's not fun, but it, like, if it makes money, I'll do it. So that's usually what I end up doing before cons. I run through all of my designs and I just like panic. And it's not a good way to live, but it's how you have to live if you don't have like people working for you to package and sell your things. So, but that's the one downside to being an artist and being your own boss and everything, is like, crap, I'm in charge of everything. I'm the one who has to do all of this stuff. I'm the one who has to order the merch. I'm the one who has to stock the shelves, and it's difficult, especially like setting up invoices and stuff. That stuff is grueling, and doing it on your own sucks, and doing taxes on your own sucks. Taxes are hell to begin with, but all right, I think I'm getting close here to being done with our good foreground character boy. I'm gonna throw this in one layer and select it all so that I can paint over it. So like I said, I'm not gonna be doing line art for this. I'm just gonna have the finished pencils, and then I'm going to color on top of those pencils. And the way that I do that, I start with this like neutral color. I decide what color I want the figure to start as, because I want the figure to be a different color than that neutral. So I'm thinking, if we're going Alucard and I have this like castle backdrop here, the castle part is going to be red, definitely. Like up here in the skies is going to be red, which means near Alucard I want to go with, there's this teal color in here, and there's the peaches of the skin, and there's golds with the hair and the eyes and the everything. So it looks like the merging color between the two is the gold, from the red to the teal. I think that's what they did for the show. It looks like that's their color palette. So I'm gonna try to make a color palette really fast with reds, teals, and golds, and then we'll decide which one is going to be my significant middle color. Once you find your middle tone, it's easy to pull up and figure out what your main figure's tone should be. So I want to go with, let's see, I like this like darker teal here. There's a muted brown, that's too peachy. There's a gold, and I want like a nice, not a berry red, a very bloody red. This is still too much of a berry red. Want just a little more of that warm orange in it. Obviously a peach for the skin. That's a little too light of a peach. Yeah. Peach for skin, that's going to be a much lighter color. And bright yellow for the rest, which means I need a mid-tone color, probably like a gray. Like a cool gray. So these are that's kind of the colors that I'm looking at. So in order to make those go together, how are we gonna, we need this red, gold, this dark gray, light gray, yellow, blue, peach. No. Those don't, that's not really making a difference here. How about, let's try another color combination. This is how most of my paintings go. It's just, let's find the color combination that doesn't make me hate it. That's a pretty good green blue. Try that. And then I want to go even bluer. So that. Ooh, maybe even darker. Yeah, even darker is a good idea. And then I want, let's go with that as our light tone. Even lighter. That's going to be also for the hair. And then I want like a gold. What is a good gold facsimile? Still want to stay in this like cool green family though. Okay, and then that gold is going to help bridge the gap to the red. So I'm going to go with like a deep brown and then bridge that gap all the way into a very bloody red. That looks kind of Christmassy. Alright, how do we lessen the Christmas vibes? Because it's green and red. We need like still a little Christmassy. I think I'm gonna make these greens a little bit further toward the blue, toward the cyan. And that might get rid of some of the Christmas vibes. Maybe the darkest green can stay and I'll just pull it, because it's already in the cyan family, I'll just pull it darker. And then this green needs to be pulled even more into blue, like that. That's a little bit less Christmas. Still got some weird happy holidays vibes, but less so now. So that's a good base idea of the kind of color palette I want to go with. So from there, I think Alucard in the center is I'm gonna start him off with this like mid-tone gold, because everything else on here is stuff that's gotta go, colors similar to them have to go to that castle. So now that I have that mid-tone gold selected, I'm just gonna select everything that is not Alucard. Easier said than done. This is where the addition tool helps a lot. Alright, keep like swapping back to check on the stream because sometimes Doing high propensity work with my laptop like this makes the stream hate me specifically, directly. So if it's a little laggy, that happens sometimes with my CPU. It hasn't been too much of a problem, but we shall see if it becomes a larger problem. Most of the time it's only when I'm selecting things like this, and I don't know why that is. Maybe because the computer has to kind of like budget itself a bit more when you're using the selection tool. It's either the selection tool or the transform tool on Clip Studio that causes this. One of the two, and it's never both when I'm streaming. It's always one or the other. Sometimes I can't select anything, and sometimes I can't use the transform tool. It's just random which one I can't use that given day. But it seems to be dissipating a little bit. Sometimes it's also internet based. Like if my internet goes wonky, my selection tool will happen and make it do wonky things. It does weird stuff. Clip Studio is a great program, but sometimes it behaves really strange. Alright, that should be the base of Alucard in the foreground. Gonna select the inverse. Oh, I can hear the street cleaners outside. I don't know if anyone can hear that, but that's the street cleaners sound like next to my house. That is why I don't sleep often at night. Because it just sounds like street cleaning, especially on Mondays. I think they clean twice a week on my street. Monday and Thursday? I don't know. I've lived here for how long and I don't know the street cleaning schedule. Alright, gotta refine some of this. Okay. So there's that. So then I've selected the main character and painted a backdrop. So now, whenever I want to paint Alucard, this, by the way, if you're not familiar with comics, this right here, this color backdrop here, that's called a flat. When comic artists do this flatting, which there goes the street sweeper again, we do this for speed when we're painting. So we will line art something. I didn't really do a line art, I just did like a sketch. So some of my flats in here are kind of sketchy, but this is just the way that I work. But we'll do a line art, say like this, and then we will flat behind it because it's easier to paint on a flat than it is to paint otherwise. So as an example, say I wanted to add shadows and highlights to this. That's a really big brush and it's going to take forever to jitter that, but I just wanted like some pink in the top bouncing off the hair. I can do that and it'll show up like that, and you can still see the lines I made through it. And you can just select only this layer. You can either do it as like a layer mask, or you can do it as just like using the selection tool or the tool up here. You click this little button, lock transparent pixels. So you're not painting on any of this transparent outer part, you're just painting on the regular layers here. So this is really easy way to paint when you have a bunch of elements that need to be painted. It becomes like so much easier to get stuff done, and you can do stuff, my favorite things to do, like adding depth with gradients very simply by having a flat. Because if you say lock transparent pixels and then you lay down a gradient on top of here, it will create those transparent pixels, which that did absolutely, oh, because I used the wrong gradient. Smart me. But say I want to make a gradient of the red sun in the sky, and I want that to be added to the drawing. You can just go like this, make a real big gradient. Hopefully it will show up. Come on, buddy. Takes a long time to load because Clip Studio hates me specifically, but there you go. See? Now this entire thing has a gradient on it, and it's really easy to do, and then I can just paint on top of this gradient as my base tone for everything, and it's so simple. So I like doing this. I like flatting like this because then I can just really easily create really simple gradients and techniques and stuff. So now that my flat is all done, I'm gonna make a folder and put both of these layers in here. Close the folder, and now I have this drawing of Alucard. So get rid of all my folders down here. So now I don't need the drawing of Alucard that's down here. So I can just work on the castle. That's why I put my figure drawing and my drawing of the backdrop with the castle on a different layer. So now I can work on solely on the castle, and I can have the flat done here and just drop it into the painting when I'm done with the castle drawing. So that's where that is. I'm gonna finish sipping some coffee here. And do a quick check on the stream. How are we doing? Alright. Looks like not too bad. Oof. Did I put my drawing glove somewhere? Hold on. Is this the correct glove? I do not think it is. It is not. It's the wrong copper glove. I can have a left-handed drawing glove. I mean, I am ambidextrous, so I could technically do that, but I don't want to draw with my left hand because my microphone is on the left side. Oh god, when my setup makes me be right-handed. I mean, I say I'm ambidextrous, but I think I'm technically left-handed. I just became ambidextrous because I was taught not to be left-handed. Weirdly, like, not in a bad way, not in a like aggressive bad way, but like in a they found out I was left-handed very young and then like just taught me to use both. What mug? It's this one. It's this one. It's that one. It's the poison mug. It glows in the dark. Oh, God. Every time I move my mug, I hit my microphone. I'm gonna shift my microphone a little bit. Hold on. Might be a little loud. Sorry. I'm trying my best here to shift this so that it's a little bit easier. Put it like that. That's less hittable. Closer to my face and less hittable. Okay. I'm trying to decide if I should start working on the rest of this tonight. I mean, how long do I have on stream? We've been here for 3 hours. Ping. Bang? Yeah, that's what happens because microphone needed adjustment, so it makes noise. I've been here for 3 hours. I think, should I finish the final bit now? Should I keep working, or should I call it a quits and go to bed? What should we do? Because it's midnight here in what is it, 7 minutes? Here in 7 minutes, I have 2 hours and 45 minutes left on the stream. I could close the stream at midnight, and that would give me 2 hours and 50 minutes, 2 hours and 52 minutes on the stream, so almost 3 hours, which isn't bad for someone who like started the stream super late. I thought I would only be doing like an hour and a half here, but I've been here, I've been hanging out. Let me think. Is there anything else that I should do? I don't have stream tomorrow, which means technically I can stay up because I don't have more things to do. Thinking. You know what? I'm gonna do a couple things on the castle. I'll see how I feel about continuing from there and going my full 4 hours, which would take me till 1 a.m., which isn't a bad sleep time for me. That's actually like normal time. Just like, strangely, FYI, I have a biphasic sleep pattern, which means I go to bed at 1 a.m., I get up at 6 a.m., I go on a run with my dog, I am up at 6 a.m., and then I go immediately after going on that run with my dog. I eat breakfast, I answer emails, I handle business stuff in the morning, because after a run I'm like really energized to go do stuff, and then after that, about 10 a.m., I take a nap for 2 hours, and then get up at noon, and then at noon I start prepping for the rest of the day, such as doing commissions, doing comics, doing stream if I'm going to stream. I will prep whatever drawing I was going to work on during stream at noon, that sort of stuff, and then I stay up until 1. So technically it's not that bad. It's just that if I do everything castle oriented tonight that I wanted to do, I would most likely not get my, like, if I stay up till 1, I don't get my hour of like wind down time before bed. That's the only sad thing. If I stay up till 1 a.m., normally I stay up till noon so that I can have like an hour of, or not noon, midnight. How you know that I am an ADHD sufferer. But if I stay up till midnight, I give myself an hour till 1 a.m. to like wind down, to calm myself, to like handle everything I needed to handle within the day, so that I can sleep soundly. But if I don't do that, it's not like I can't sleep. It's just like that's my usual ritual, and it might take me like 20 minutes to fall asleep. But to be honest, that's not that bad. Especially on that Tuesday. I would be not doing this if this was not a Monday. God. If this was not a Monday, I would so be just like, I don't have time for this. I need sleep. But strangely, like, Mondays to me, I know this is going to be strange for anyone who doesn't have a weird work schedule, who isn't doing art all the time, but Mondays for me feel kind of like weekends, because Mondays are the days where Mondays are, I do some work, but I tend not to do tons. Mondays are usually cleaning the house kind of day, and then I stream, and then from there I either go to bed or like, you know, handle what I need to handle. But like Mondays are kind of chill for me, like which is why I'm fine with streaming on them. So I treat Mondays kind of like they're a Saturday pretty often. So and then it like Tuesdays kind of feel like Sundays because I do all my grocery shopping on Tuesdays, and I do all of my like gearing up for the rest of the week on Tuesdays, because then Wednesday I stream again, and Thursday I do commissions and comic stuff, Friday I stream, and then Saturday I do commissions and comic stuff, you know. So and then Sunday is like meal prep and commissions and catch up anything that I need to do that I didn't do throughout the week, like commissions I didn't finish or anything like that, pieces I didn't fully flesh out, all of that Saturday. So it's just like it kind of screws with your mentality if you work like a regular 9 to 5, but my schedule generally revolves around Mondays being days that I can stay up late. And I don't know how that happened, because I also like play a lot of D&D, and like D&D games run late into the night, but for some reason my D&D games are set up for Thursday nights, and I like don't usually sleep between Thursday and Friday. If I do, I get very like minimal kinds of sleep between Thursdays and Fridays. Like usually I will play D&D until like midnight, and then I will stay up, finish what I need to finish whatever commission or thing that I needed to finish until like 2 in the morning, and then I'll get like 2 hours of sleep, get up at 4, and start my day on Thursdays that way. So alright, I want to put in a gradient. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I don't want a circular ring gradient. I want a linear gradient. Come on, lay the gradient down so that I can get rid of it. All right. Linear gradient. There we go. So I'm gonna lay down a linear gradient on the sky. I'm just kind of like basing in some flats of what I want the backdrop to look like. And now we're saving our recovery information. Thanks, Clip Studio. It's really what I wanted. And then I want to add in, I know this is gonna look wild, but I promise it'll look good at the end. Green and orange is such a color palette. I really love green and orange together. It's a really good color palette. It really is. And then what I really want is some cyan into that orange, so I'm just gonna use this cyan color and then lay the green back over top of it. Yeah, and then I'm gonna grab the dark green again. Actually, I want the really dark green. Lay it not as far up. Yeah, there we go. That gives more of a base to that green gradient there. And then I'm gonna grab the red. This is just all sky backdrop stuff, and it's really easy to do, which is why I was debating on whether I should do it right now, because sky stuff easy. But this is kind of the base of like the color that I want to go for with the sky, and then the moon in the center. Castlevania has this theme of like a red moon, so in order to do that, I have the moon already painted red, but it also has some like orange elements to it and some other lighting elements and stuff in it. So there's a lot that you can do with that, but I'm just gonna lay in some brighter bits in here. When creating moons, they're really just random textural elements a lot of the time. So I like to just lay in, when I'm thinking of like the color palette of something, I like to just throw in like random colors, random textures, and then see how the moon kind of turns out. it's kind of easier to do things this way than it is to go in and be like, I'm gonna draw every single crater. I'm gonna make sure that I put all of the detail of the moon in one place. It's like, it's easier to just throw in random colors. You can also deal with the lighting that's gonna come off of the moon a lot. So for me, this one, I'm just kind of like really laying in like a bunch of muddy colors. And it's gonna look red in the end, but once I have this laid in, I can go in and just put in a gradient that is this kind of murky orange where that moon is, where it sets. Let it lay itself. Let it take its time. And then hit overlay. And then you have a kind of convincing red moon. So, if you can't tell, I have drawn one or two blood moons before in my time. They are one of the things that I enjoy drawing. I'm also going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to do this. This will just give that more of a glow. And then I can go in and start adding in darker elements to this moon later. But that's usually how I handle blood moon. It's usually a pretty easy way to do it. Now I just have to add in some other corner elements and things. And I'll be probably adding in clouds and all kinds of other stuff, but this is just like base backdrop. Neat. Blood moon. Done. Where is my beautiful castle? I'm gonna get rid of all of this. I think... Which layer is it? Is it this one? Yes. Okay. I'm gonna move all of this castle stuff up here. Turn all of these layers back on. And then make the folder with the castle a multiply layer. That way, I can see my sketch behind everything. I can see what I was going for and all of that stuff, but I don't have to worry about it. Next step, which I think I will be doing, where are we at on stream? So 2:57, we got 3 more minutes until 3 hours. How are we doing on anything else? You know, I think I might just leave it here, because the next step would be doing the flats for the castle, and that's going to take some time. That's going to take doing some like creative lasso drawing and tool using. So I think I'm going to leave that to the next time that I am working on this piece. So I think we're all set for tonight in the next 2 minutes or so. Honestly, this stream was pretty fun. I didn't think that I would be streaming for this long. I really thought that I was going to come on here for an hour and then not do anything, but I got a lot done on this painting that I started on Friday, so I'm glad about that. I'm glad I came on today. I was debating on whether or not I should, but this stream was pretty fun. If you were here at any point in time and you had a good time, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me while I draw and babble about random random stuff. I normally I'd like to say that I am more coherent than this, but that's not true. I know myself, and I know that I just babble. So if you were here and you liked hanging out and chatting, thanks for being around. Feel free to follow the stream, follow my Twitter, follow me on Instagram. All of that stuff should be linked below. If it is hard to find or you cannot find me, once you find my Twitter page, it is pretty easy to find everything else. In the meantime, if you'd like to see more from me, I will be active on Twitter. And if you want any updates on anything else that I'm doing, that's all going to be on the social medias. So really easy to find me. Feel free to do so. I'm nice. I promise I don't bite. I am totally fine with like friending, and I'm also fine with friending people back. So if you'd like to find me on there, feel free to do so. I will be hanging out on there. The next stream is going to be on Wednesday. A Wednesday's stream normally would be a character design stream. So for Wednesday's stream, we're going to be doing some stuff related to Handbasket. I haven't figured out what specifically yet, whether it's going to be pages, inking, flatting, coloring, designing, whatever it is. It's going to have to do with the comic that I've been working on for years. I really want to get the panels done for that, so we are going to set that up and get that rolling. So I will be back on Wednesday doing that, getting stuff ready for Handbasket and portfolio stuff, and I will see you in the next stream. Good night, everyone. Happy oh, it just hit 12:09 and we just hit 3 hours, so happy 3-hour mark. Oh, and also before I go, thanks to everyone who just followed me today. Thanks Hello Dandy, Shadow Wordpain, Ogre Masher, and Punk Rockle. Punk Rockle is a friend of mine, so thanks for hanging out, Rachel. But thanks everyone else who followed me today, and thanks for joining the stream and having a fun time, and thanks for the raids and stuff. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go finish my coffee and watch some soap opera stuff, and it's gonna be the rest of my night. Snuggle with my currently sleeping dog, and she's probably going to be mad at me. So good night, everyone. Have a great one, and I will see you on Wednesday.